Greetings, everyone, and welcome to episode 47 of Teaching Tales, the podcast totally devoted to sharing stories from the world of education. As always, I am still Brent Coley, your host, elementary principal in beautiful Southern California. And joining me today on the other coast, I believe, Jon Harper. Jon, how are you doing, man?
Brent, man, I'm awesome. It's beautiful on this coast as well. I am on the East Coast, and it is a beautiful day today. 80 degrees, sunny, and just awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. I love because I think we had a high of 81 today, and I always feel guilty when I talk with somebody who's like in Minnesota or something like that, and they're under a foot of snow, and I'm like, yeah, we had shirts on. So awesome. Well, Jon, we're going to get into it. We're going to share some stories today, but for anyone, you have a podcast. That is how I got in contact with you. But for anyone not familiar with you, who is Jon Harper?
Absolutely. I guess first and foremost, I consider myself a father. I have a 12-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. I'm married to a wonderful woman. And in education, I am currently a vice principal at an elementary school of about 450 kids on the East Coast of Maryland. My passions are blogging and podcasting. And My Bad is the main podcast. It's the podcast that I host, but I've actually just started a new podcast I'm co-hosting with Mandy Freilich called Teacher's Aid. It's all about providing social emotional support for teachers. And, I've been lucky over the last 3 or 4 years to hear a lot of powerful stories from a lot of amazing educators on My Bad. And so it's been a gift, and it's been an honor for people to have them trust me with their stories. And it's been a fun ride.
That's awesome. I'm actually been writing back and forth with Mandy, trying to get her on as a guest for Teaching Tales. So hopefully that will work out as well. And yeah, you referenced My Bad before we started recording. I think you and I are similar in that we both believe in the power of storytelling. And one of the things that I love about your podcast, My Bad, for anyone who has not yet heard that podcast, it's awesome. You need to go and subscribe. Not right now. Finish listening to this episode first, but then go subscribe to My Bad. And it's all about, Jon, you have a different guest on each time, and you share mistakes that teachers make and the lessons that they learn from them. And I just think that that's so powerful because, you and I both know as administrators at elementary schools, we're constantly telling our students it's okay to make mistakes as long as we learn from them. And you're like doing that with adults, like giving them a platform to share their mistakes, be transparent so that other people can learn from them.
Absolutely. And it's you hit on something there. A lot of times we ask kids to do things. We ask them to share about their day or what they're having a tough time. We probe and question them because we want to get to know them and we want to be able to help them. But a lot of times, we haven't reciprocated. We haven't given to them the stories that move us. We haven't told them much about ourselves. And so I think that's so important as teachers, as administrators, in any role you have, as, parents, as friends. The more you give, the more you're going to get back. And people are going to trust you if they know they can be vulnerable with you. But first, I think you have to be vulnerable with them. And I think that means everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. Building that relationship with the kids, showing that transparency, that vulnerability, they will open up a whole lot more than they would without that. So, the theme for this title of this episode, I've called it Learning from Our Mistakes, to kind of piggyback on the platform that you have with My Bad. I'm thinking we can both share a My Bad story. I've got a mistake that I have made that I can share, but and this is going to sound bad, I'll give you the platform first to tell us about your mistake first, Jon. No, I'm just kidding.
Tell you what, whatever works. I don't mind. I do it quite often. I write about them and talk about them, so that's fine.
Yeah, because we've all got tons of them. I make them every single day. So yeah, if you got a story to share, go for it.
Sure. I'll be honest. The ones I see a lot of different types, but the ones that I've been making recently are, and the one that I'll probably share about has to do with judging a situation, judging someone before I have all the facts. And it's very easy to do, and in education, we have to make, I forget the number, thousands of decisions a day, and we're always reacting. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we have to make judgments, but when it comes to judging people, I don't think we do have to make judgments so quickly. And I've been guilty of that recently. And there was a day recently where I had to take my daughter to get some blood work done. And I wanted to do it before school, so I had to take her at 7 a.m. And we timed it perfectly so I could drop her off at 7 a.m., get it done in about 15 or 20 minutes, drop her off at school, and then drive my 30-minute commute to work and be there by 8. I had everything timed out perfectly. I thought, this is going to be good. So we got there, and we're in the parking lot. And I see somebody else there, and I'm thinking, oh, this isn't good. The door's not open yet. So we go up there, we look, still not open. 7:05, still not open. 7:10, still not open. I'm thinking, okay, this is typical. This is typical places like this. This is in my brain. Finally, a woman comes up, opens the door. Roy didn't give any hi or hello or I'm sorry, just opened the door and then went behind, started turning the lights on, and I'm thinking, oh, this is good. Not only was she late, but she's got that attitude. And, we sit down and I'm thinking, I'm going to be late for work. This is inconsiderate. These people, when I say these people, the people that work in, like blood places like that, they always seem to be late, always seem to keep you waiting. They're not friendly. And really, if I'm honest with myself, they always are. But somehow it's kind of like the DMV. We have that image as a stereotype, but a lot of times my experiences have been good. And so I'm thinking, okay, this is typical. But, they call me to go up, and I hand them my insurance card, and I'm getting ready to pay. And I overhear the woman who opened up talk to another person who had just gotten there, say something like, they just called you too, huh? And she said, yeah, they called me. So-and-so couldn't come into work. And then it hit me that, wait a minute, these two ladies probably just got called about 30 minutes ago to come to work. And I'm sitting here complaining because I had to wait 10 minutes and complaining in my brain. I didn't say anything out loud, but I'm thinking, I'm judging this woman on something that, I was totally off. I'm fairly certain that she probably just got called that morning, last minute, to come in to cover for someone. And here I am making a judgment about her. And I explained that to my daughter, who's 12. I said, and I explained the whole thing to her so that she understood that, and in that moment, her dad was an idiot and judged somebody. And she's used to me being an idiot and explaining stories like that. But, it's so powerful because so often we make judgments about people and we really have no idea. We hear it a lot. Everybody's fighting a battle. Everybody's got something going on. And especially in schools with our students and with our teachers, there's so many things they're going through. And we don't always know them, and we're not going to always know them. But I think the one thing we can do is before we make a judgment, at least try to get to know them. And I didn't on that day. Luckily, I didn't act out. I didn't say anything stupid. I could have. I was thinking things that were stupid. I was just making judgments on her, but I didn't. And so that was my big mistake. I seem to be making more and more of those recently, and I'm trying to slow down and really give people the benefit of the doubt because, they deserve it. And that's the same thing I want for myself.
Yeah. No, well, just know you're not the only one who's made that mistake. I've made that mistake, and I think anyone listening, I think we've all made that mistake. And what a powerful reminder to, like you said, everybody's got something going on. And on the surface, it looked like, geez, guys, you're late, and not even a sorry. But
right.
They weren't even. Those two ladies probably weren't even supposed to be there that day. They last minute stepped up to the plate. And with kids, you're vice principal. I'm in an elementary level school as well, and that just reminds me. There's a verse in Proverbs that the first to plead his case seems right until another comes and examines him.
Right.
I'm sure you have those types of things where you hear about something of a student saying, so-and-so did this to me. And I don't know if you've ever had that happen, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that so-and-so did that. And you ever had that happen? And then you go and you find out, and guess what? Kiddo didn't do that. You didn't have I have learned many times.
No, I'll be honest, I have another story, if you don't mind me sharing.
Go for it. Yeah.
But I had one that happened about 7 years ago where I'm on bus duty, and I'm standing there, and it was one of my favorite parts of the day because I get to see a lot of the kids come in. And I see this kid just jump off the bus, maybe third or fourth grade, and roundhouse punch this other kid in the shoulder. And I snatched him up. I grabbed him by the hand or the wrist, probably tighter than I should have, and marched him to my office with the kid that he had hit. and just tore into him. I'm like, what in the world are you doing? What made you think that was okay? There was no reason you should have your hands on him. This is ridiculous. I'm going to call your mom, this, that, and the other. I didn't even give him a chance to talk. He says, Mr. Harper, Mr. Harper, Mr. Harper. I said, what? He said, I did that because the boy that I hit stole my bike out of my shed last night. And all morning he's been on the bus bragging to everybody on the bus about how he stole my bike right out of my shed. And I'm thinking, oh, snap. I'm like, I would have been angry too. And I'm not saying that violence is the best thing, but, I made a judgment about who was the most wrong and who was, I made a judgment about him. And that bothered me that I did that because, the one thing we can't do is deny kids their anger, deny people their feelings. And he definitely had every right to be angry. And, I always say it's comparable to someone stealing our car and then riding around the block the next day, honking the horn with the windows down, just bragging that they have our car. I mean, I'd be livid. I'd want to go, I don't know what, but no, I mean, that quote that you said is perfect. I mean, I've been definitely guilty of that.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said there about, because I have those conversations with kids too. And I think it's really important to validate like the feelings, like when kids say something like you said, hey, it's okay to be angry. I mean, like it's natural. I mean, I can understand how you were feeling there. It's just how are we going to respond to it? And you know what? Yeah, I probably would have wanted to hit him too, right. but you can't do that. Like and I've just seen like when you're honest like that with kids and you validate their feelings, like, hey, I can understand and appreciate your frustration and your anger even. I probably would have felt the same way. You kind of see them come down, and then you can have that conversation more openly about, however, we have to express it in different ways.
They see that you're real. I mean, if you put up that thing where, you're never going to hit somebody and you're never going to do that. And then, especially that's the same thing with parents, At first, before I had children, I would hear parents say, and I'm sure you hear this, well, I told my kid if somebody hits him, hit him back.
Yep.
And the first time you hear that, before you have kids, you think that's ridiculous. That doesn't make sense. And then the first time you get that call that something's happened to one of your children, you think, gosh, I wish my kid would have at least, I don't know. You think differently.
Yeah.
You understand why a parent wants a kid to sort of take up for themselves. And I'm not, condoning violence whatsoever, but it resonates much differently. And when you have that conversation with parents and you say, you know what, I'm a parent first.
Yep.
I try to always say that I'm a parent first, and I definitely hear your anger, and I'm going to take care of this situation. Yeah. But it's easy to cast judgment before knowing everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll share a story now about one of my bads. This happened way back in my very first year of teaching. Yet it still haunts me, so to speak. But I mean, I remember, I don't know about when you were in the classroom management for me. I remember when I was getting my teaching credential, I believed then, I still believe that classroom management is really, really important. And I remember like in my student teaching, I really worked hard on developing those classroom management skills because I knew that if chaos reigned in the room, maximum learning wasn't going to take place. And so when I got hired for my first teaching position, it was fourth grade. I mean, I established that structure from day one, that routine from day one. We had fun in class, but there was order. There was no swinging from the chandeliers in my room. I ran a tight ship, and I felt good about how things were going. Until incident happened, and I got a reality check, the proverbial slap upside the head. It was one morning, and my kids were working at their desks, and I had one little girl, we'll call her Ariana, and she was back at the classroom computer. And this is like 1996, so the classroom computer, the one without internet in the back of the room. So, and the rest of the class was working on something independently. I don't even remember what they were doing, but she was back on the computer, and I was up in the front of the room prepping for like the next lesson. And I remember Ariana walked up to me, and she said, she kind of motioned me like, hey, Mr. Cole, can you come to the front of the classroom? Like she wanted to tell me something privately. So I walked up to her and she kind of looked to make sure nobody was listening. And she got real close and she whispered, "Mr. Coley, I wet my pants." And I remember kind of whispering back like, "Oh no." And I remember asking her, I said, "Why didn't you ask me if you could go to the restroom?" And John, what she said to me, I did not expect, but she looked me right in the eyes. May have well has been a punch in the gut. She looked me right in the eyes and she said, "I thought you'd say no."
Oh,
Yeah. And it's like, oh my gosh. So, I mean, at that moment, I could not have felt any lower. I quietly sent her up to the office. She got a change of clothes. Thankfully, nobody, they were none the wiser. Nobody knew what had happened. She came back and it was great, but it was like such a unfortunate example that my priorities were so misaligned, that I was so focused on classroom structure and order and routine that I had failed to build the relationships with these kids, to the point that a 9-year-old girl was afraid to ask me to go to the bathroom, to the point that she wet herself. And it's just,
wow.
like, oh my gosh. But, and I'm not happy it happened, but I'm glad it happened in my first year, so that is just stuck in my mind. And now I know relationships. I've got to build relationships. I've got to make my classroom. I still believe classroom management's important. I mean, you're an administrator. You can walk into a classroom and you can tell within 5 seconds what the level of engagement is in the classroom. If you don't have management, it doesn't matter what the teacher is saying. So you have to have that. But going forward, it's like, but it's got to be safe. It's got to be comfortable. The students have to feel like they can approach their teacher. And in that instant, with that student, I totally blew it. And I did not.
How did you change? How did you change going forward, like from that moment on?
I just, number one, I would like the rest of that year, I'm constantly remembering it. And it was like, we still have the rules, we still have the high expectations and things like that. But I made it a point to get to know students more, on like more of a personal level. Hey, how was your soccer game that week, that past weekend? And just really trying to get down on their level and not be the high and mighty teacher who is the giver of all rules type thing. And I didn't feel like I was that at the beginning, but I was to a degree, at least for that student.
At least to her. That's what I was going to ask. I mean, do you think she was justified in, I mean, I guess obviously she was, because that was her perception. I mean, she obviously felt that you were going to say no. What made her think that you would say no?
I think that it was probably, you know what, you need to make sure that you're going to the bathroom at recess, and these are the times that we do this, these are the times that we do that. And I don't remember exactly what my structure was, but my guess is it would probably something along the lines of, make sure you take care of your business when you need to take care of your business. And she didn't do that or whatever. And I mean, but ouch. I mean, just telling that story still is kind of like, oh my God. Right. It was as if she punched me in the gut. And did
you have to talk to her parent?
Boy, I don't even remember, to be honest. I mean, but the thing that the silver lining in that story is nobody knew. So there, I mean, she had embarrassment, I'm sure, but there wasn't public humiliation or anything like that. I mean, if that would happen, oh my gosh, I don't know what I would have done. So I'm just thankful. Again, it was a huge mistake. I'm thankful that it happened early on in my career, so that, and now that it just, like I said, it realigned my priorities. It's not about rules. It's about relationships. And if you don't have relationships, the rules don't matter. And now that I'm as a site administrator, principal of an elementary school, it's like, it's even more important now, I think, that because now we've got nearly 900 kids at our school.
Wow, that's a lot, right?
Really strive to build those relationships with them, so that when I have to have a conversation about maybe they made a poor choice or didn't meet expectations, there's a relationship built. so that they can open up to me, accept responsibility, whatever it is. So
Do you have children?
I do. I have a 13 and a 17-year-old.
Okay, so I guess it's the things I think about this. Like when these things happen and I do this, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if my daughter came home or my son came home, my son's 7, so it might be more likely for him. He came home and said the teacher didn't let him use the bathroom, or he didn't feel comfortable with the teacher enough to let them use the bathroom. I would have been angry at that teacher. So it's that I always go back to that thinking too. I'm thinking, God, when I make mistakes like that, I'm thinking I got to be the teacher, that I would want a kid to be in my classroom. That's what I expect from everybody.
Yeah. And if that would have happened, and I've learned, because geez, the number of times that I have blown it, and if a teacher comes or says something and just saying like, my bad, to take to borrow from your title of your podcast is, and just own it and say like, you're right, I blew it, and I'm going to do everything in my power to try to make that right. And I think there's such power in that apology, because I did with the student. I really tried to go over like, I am so sorry. You can always come to me, and really tried to communicate to her. I don't want you to feel like that. But yeah, if the parent comes to me, geez, what could I say? No, it's her fault. I mean, I'm not going to do that. Although, unfortunately, I think some people do, or some people would, but I don't.
No, and I think another thing, I mean, having made that mistake, when you encounter teachers that make mistakes, or you observe teachers that make mistakes, it helps you to be a little bit more forgiving. Because if you hadn't made that mistake and you were to hear that one of your teachers did that, you'd want to go off.
Yeah.
At first, you'd be like, "How in the world can you not do that?" And you still talk to them about that. But then at least you have a little more, I think, a little more empathy. You're thinking, you know what? I did this once too. I may have been young, but I did this once too. Okay, here's what you're going to do. You got to build a relationship, and you got to do this, this, and this. But it helps you build that relationship, and you have a little bit more empathy towards someone who's made that mistake.
Yeah, and I think as in a leadership position, I try. I mean, my teachers, they'll tell you. I mean, I like to tell a lot of stories, and I like to be very transparent, just in terms of whether it's giving bad homework, for example, when we're talking about modifying our homework practices and being really reflective on why we're doing what we're doing. When I've led those discussions with my staff, I like raise my hand and say like, I'm leading the parade for somebody who gave bad homework sometimes. Like this is not necessarily you're doing it wrong and I did it right. I just think it's so much more when we're transparent and we're vulnerable and we're just honest. Like, I'm not perfect, guys. I blew it, and I don't want you to blow it like I did. Or nobody ever asked me to reflect on why I was doing this, and that's why I'm doing it for you, to try to help you, because nobody did it for me. So,
no, it's so important. And I mean, I'll be honest. I don't know about you, but I think teaching is so much harder today than it was when you and I were teaching. I don't know how long ago it's been since you taught. It's been 11 years since I've taught, and it's so much harder nowadays. Teachers have so much more on their plate. Oh,
I've been out of the classroom for 7 years, and it is, just in those 7, it is immensely more complicated. More is required of them. More things are put on their plate. Expectations, standards have increased. I mean, it's absolutely. So, well, Jon, good conversation, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
I appreciate you sharing those stories about, like you said, being careful to judge, because again, anyone listening, we've all been there. So, and Jon, for anyone who wants to get a hold of you, or follow you online, listen to your podcast, how can they reach out and connect with you?
I'd say the best way to find me is just to go on BAM Radio Network and look for My Bad, or look for Teacher's Aid.
Okay. Teacher's Aid, that's the new one with
Mandy.
With Mandy. Okay. I'm not aware of that one yet, but I'm going to go get it next. And you're on Twitter as well. So, and like I said, guys, gals, if you're listening, got to get My Bad. Subscribe to it, because it is good stuff. If you enjoyed this episode, that's his podcast. He's got a lot of, and it's just educators from all over the country sharing their mistakes. And I love it. I love the concept because it's what we ask of our students. We ask them to fail. We encourage risk taking. We don't want to penalize them for that. And I think we need to model that as adults. Hey, I blew it. This is what I tried. It didn't work, or I just completely screwed up. And here's what I learned from it. And I just love it. So Jon, thank you for taking the time and for providing the platform for educators to share their stories. So I really, really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much, Brent. It's been an honor to be on here, and it's an honor to get to talk to people each week. So thanks so much, and hopefully I'd like to have you on.
Anytime, let me know. I would be honored to be a guest. That would be awesome. So
absolutely.
All right, and for anybody listening, once again, if you haven't yet subscribed to Teaching Tales, subscribe. Then you don't have to check the website. It's automatically going to be delivered to your phone each time a new episode is released. And once again, would really appreciate it if you like what you hear. Drop a review in iTunes, Google Play, because that helps. Again, it helps get the word out to other people. It's not about ratings or egos or anything like that. But if you like it, please drop a review because it allows more people to hear it. Once again, for everyone listening, thank you for taking the time. And until next time, have a good one.